What's up, everybody? Today we are going to be taking a look at my WE Knives 604D. I'm just doing this video as a little side piece to the review that I wrote about it for Reddit, and I wanted to go over a couple of things just to show you guys what I mean with my review. So you might be able to see now in the light that the color of the handle is blue, but as I brush my finger over it, you can see it starts to turn a dark purple. Might be a little bit hard to see here, but if I just go over this whole handle, you can see most of the scales are dark purple now as opposed to this blue. I think I've captured it well enough by now. Now, I'm not exactly sure how they achieve that. It could just be the way it works with, I don't know, the ano on the titanium, with the scale work and just how the light reflects off of it when it's got a little bit of moisture on it or a little bit of heat. I can't really tell if it's moisture or heat. I tend to have sweaty palms, so it's just something that I notice when I make contact with the knife. That, or it's like some sort of thermoreactive paint. It's really hard to tell. The knife doesn't exactly look anodized as I'm traditionally used to it, but I mean, it very likely is. If you look up close, though, there's definitely the blue and then the gold, and so how anodization would have been separated like that without clear masking is beyond me. But if I get up real close too, I don't know if it'll focus this close. Apparently not. So I'll get some high-res photos to show you guys how detailed that CNC work gets, even beyond what the naked eye can really see. I really enjoy all the purple hardware. That's just personal preference. But the things that I really wanted to touch on with this knife were, one, just the size in general. At 8.75 inches, it's just a really great size, no matter what your hand size is. I particularly have small hands, so you can see if I get around the handle like that, there's plenty of space here for a much bigger hand. So this knife is going to work for anybody. But the handle is slim enough in its overall profile in this direction that even with a small hand, it feels really good. Like it doesn't feel too big in my hand. I feel like I have a really sturdy grip. And then, of course, you have this light jimping that I mentioned in my review, which, if we look at it, is really not that deep. So it's very smooth. It feels really good. It gives you a little bit of purchase, not much. But it's got a great aesthetic feel, and it is somewhat functional. But it's definitely not a hot spot because of how smooth it is. You can see on the blade the vertical satin polish finish. Looks pretty good. It's got a little bit of the mirroring going on, but also the satin, and I like how they've done it. And make sure I don't slice my finger along the cutting edge there, but I like how they've done it in this kind of vertical look. A lot of the satin I've gotten my hands on is kind of horizontal this way. Another thing that I want to talk about with this knife is the action for the price. So this knife retails for $300 on places like Blade HQ and Knife Center. I picked it up on eBay from an eBay seller called eCop that sells a lot of WE products and other knives for about $253, and it was brand new in box, so that was a really good deal. You can see on the blade, I don't know if I'll be able to capture it. It's so difficult to tell. This might be something I have to, right there. See that little bit? It's impossible to see, I mean, under anything other than the perfect conditions, but that was like that out of the box. I honestly don't even really consider that much of an issue because, again, it's literally impossible to see unless you've got a light right on it and you're looking straight, square at it, almost to the point where you're poking your eye, that you really see it. But the action on this for $300 is absolutely stunning. I don't know how much the thwack is going to translate here, but that just has such a good sound to it. It's so satisfying here. I'll do it up next to the mic. We'll see how much that translates. And when you close the knife, it does drop under its own weight. There's a little bit of a tink, but it's loud and it's solid, And, you know, there are more satisfying closing sounds. Let's see if we can get that over by the mic as well. There are more satisfying sounds, but that's really, really good as far as I'm concerned for what is effectively, in every sense, a production knife. But it's really the fact that the knife consistently opens and consistently drops closed. Just so incredibly smooth. It's like glass. It feels like two pieces of glass more than it feels like, bearings with butter on them. It's just absolutely impeccable for the price. This is the same kind of action that I would expect on a much, much more expensive knife. And in comparison, I do have this Reich 1507. Now, this knife is the same amount, and it's just not the same. See if I can... The flipper tab, I'm all over it. When it opens, I can feel it. I can feel it on the bearings. It just kind of slaps open. It's just a lot less satisfying. It doesn't really drop under its own weight. I can shake it closed if I get all aggressive with it, but it's certainly not as smooth as the Wii. So it's really hard for me to get. I don't have enough space here. I'm kind of hitting this thing to really show you guys, but I'm not putting that much onto the flipper tab here. I'm holding the knife in a really awkward position. I don't have a lot of leverage. And you'll just be able to see that, it absolutely glides open every time in just such a perfect way, and it requires such minimal effort. I'm going to try to get a good example of just, I'm kind of just barely putting enough. Oh, okay, well, I just cut a hole in my desk, but let's try a little higher. I'm just barely on it, and then if I bring up the pressure a little bit, you can see the absolute minimum amount of pressure required to light switch this flipper tab is the same amount of pressure required to get it all the way out with a smooth action. That is incredible. There are so many expensive knives out there that require all kinds of different considerations when you're using the flipper tab. Some you can only light switch, some you can only push button, some require a lot of effort because they have a really strong detent, others don't require much effort, but if you don't put in more effort, then they only swing open halfway, like this 1507 often does. This one, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how you interact with the flipper tab. All you need is enough to get it past the detent, and it comes out every time. And then once you get it past the detent the other way, it just drops closed. And if you get it past the detent with a little bit of effort, it slams closed. And of course, you can push it like this past the detent, and it'll close right up. The last thing I want to touch on about this knife in the video specifically is the balance. Now, I mentioned this in my written review, and it's something that I feel is lost on flippers. Balance only seems to be a consideration for fixed blade knives. Now, granted, I'm still fairly new to the hobby, so take what I say with a grain of salt. Perhaps it is in higher consideration than I'm aware, but anecdotally speaking, and in experience with all of my other flippers, it just doesn't seem to be a priority. I don't have the balance right where my pointer finger is like I would or like I would expect on a nice fixed blade or a nice kitchen knife. The 604D, we'll see if I can keep my hand from shaking enough to do it, but it's balanced right where the finger choil is. So I'll bring the knife over so that you can see where my finger is, but it's right here. So when I'm holding the knife, I can let go, and the knife is completely balancing on my finger. Now it's kind of falling, so that's why but the knife is completely balanced on my finger right now, right where I hold it naturally. And I can do this all day. I'm moving up and down. It's not touching any of these fingers. It's just on my pointer finger. I can let it all the way down and grab the knife. So that is, in fact, one of my absolute favorite things about this knife is the fact that it's balanced right on the choil, right where your index finger holds the knife. It makes the entire knife feel weightless in the hand. I don't know the exact weight of this off the top of my head. It's a very thick blade with a thick grind in CPM S35 VN steel. The handle is skeletonized. I don't have lighting in the proper position to really show you, but it is skeletonized. But it's still a pretty hefty knife at 8.75 inches, and yet when you've got the proper grip on it and you're holding it just like this, the whole thing disperses its weight throughout your hand perfectly, and it's just so well balanced, and your thumb just so perfectly sits right here that the whole knife ends up feeling like a 3-ounce blade. Or knife in general. It's absolutely amazing. So that's it for this one, everybody. I absolutely love this knife, if that hasn't been made clear at this point already, and I can't recommend it enough. Definitely check them out on eBay, see if that eCop store has them. They had great customer service. They followed up with me the whole way through the buying process. Again, it was $50 cheaper than it was from any other dealer, and I got the knife brand new. You know, it was completely sealed and wrapped, and it just felt really good unwrapping this thing. It did need to be broken in, but once I got that going, it just turned out to be such a great knife for the price. Value, 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 value. And if you're not into these crazy colors like I am, this thing comes in black and silver titanium, so you are absolutely covered. Thanks a lot, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.